instructions about what women should do and all this stuff. He's not even married.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So who's he to say what we should
Right.
and shouldn't do?
right.
Excuse me, everything in the Bible is supposed to be, I'm sorry, when it comes to Paul, I have to ask questions.
I don't know about that. Anyway, suffering leads to mature faith. I think
it can.
it can, but
But I think it also go the other way. Like my dad completely gave up on God when my brother died,
yeah,
and he never recovered. from
I
that.
think wisdom leads to mature faith.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But you can get wisdom out of suffering, I guess. is
You
what I'm
do,
thinking.
yeah.
Romans-
But
Romans-
prolonged suffering or sudden suffering,
Yeah.
there's, it's different because back then it was all suffering.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I think it was written that
Different,
way.
right.
There was,
Yeah.
it
Like
was
as a
awful.
people, they suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there were kings with
Right.
all the money and their people,
Right.
and then the
Who
people
loved
that
people,
didn't have
didn't
anything,
matter,
that lived with
right.
rats and died from the plague and all that
Yeah,
kind of
right,
stuff.
right.
And I think it's based on that kind of thing. But suffering does help, I think, but I think
Yeah. I don't think
the
it,
wisdom you
it's-
gain from the suffering and things like
Right.
that is more that leads to faith. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Right.
We go.
I was just reading those 3 verses.
Okay, what does it say?
It says that we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. Hope does not disappoint us because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, which has been given to us.
Maybe I don't get a lot out of suffering because I haven't gotten to the point where I can praise God for it. Because it didn't say thank God for your suffering. I ain't there yet. I ain't mature enough to go, oh, thank you, Lord.
Sorry, but I can't understand how anybody could say, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm suffering."
Yeah.
I can see you praising God in the midst of the suffering, but still,
After you get through it,
Oh yeah, because once that suffering starts, what's the first thing you forget?
you turn away from God.
God.
Yeah, you say, God, why am I going through this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess
If you thank God.
it's a technique or something that kind of makes you kind of turn around and help.
All right.
I don't know about
well,
that.
I looked up some stuff about Paul, and he did have a lot of
Oh.
crap going on.
Oh, yeah, a lot of suffering. Because he was always
Did
thrown
you?
in jail, beat, and
Oh yeah.
starved.
And then was decapitated.
At the end of it, yeah.
And said he was in jail for 2 years before that.
Right.
And the jails were not what we think of.
Right.
Yeah, I
They
know
were in
what
people's
the jails
homes.
So, yeah.
Some of
And
it
you- and
depends
when I
And
whether.
if your family was had to feed you and stuff.
Well, that's
I
it.
think it depends on whether the king sentenced you.
Yeah,
or-
maybe.
I don't know. I
Where
just
it was
it said
maybe
something
like
about they were in
Personal, yeah.
Or
Something
house
personal,
arrest.
maybe.
Civil court versus
You like
Supreme
criminal,
Court
yeah,
or
whatever, yeah.
criminal or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know.
In your experience, how does the assurance of God's love affect your response to affliction?
Affliction. What the heck's affliction? Let me see.
So like
Are
suffering.
you afflicted?
Like suffering, I guess. On the effects of affliction
Well, it
often
gets
make
us
people
through.
conscious of their vulnerability, it says.
That's interesting. It does make us.
Reminds us that we're vulnerable.
Is to make people. Let's say that affliction often is to make people conscious of their vulnerability and make them feel that they are abandoned by friends and
You look
by
at people
God.
that are in, say, have cystic fibrosis.
Or something.
They're in a
Cerebral palsy
wheelchair
or something.
all their life,
Right,
and you wonder how they could be joyful.
right,
There's a country, he's a gospel singer,
okay,
and he's in a wheelchair, and he's all like this.
yeah,
He's got a beautiful voice,
Right.
and he praises God every time you see him on TV singing or whatever. He's always so happy.
right,
And look at Johnny Erickson.
right. Yeah, I
Johnny
remember.
Erickson.
Johnny Erickson.
He was
She had a diving accident, and her neck, she was paralyzed from the waist down. But she learned to paint with a paintbrush in her teeth.
Yeah, I think she was
And
from the
she
neck down.
she
I
has
think she was
yeah,
doing it, yeah,
and she has a program. I see her once in a while on TV.
yeah, with a husband
And
or
she's she married a Oriental guy,
something.
and she has this great testimony
Right,
about how God has blessed her. And I thought,
Yeah.
It's so hard to.
I read her
I
book.
think
There
that's
she was a big thing.
acceptance though.
Yeah.
You have to accept that
Well,
this
that's
is your
it.
life.
But
And just like we are able to do whatever we
There-
want to
there is a
do.
documentary movie type thing out about her,
I think
and
so,
she
yeah.
went through a spell where she
Didn't
really
Right.
rebelled.
struggle there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
She struggled, but she finally got through it and became, and now she
Yeah,
his testimony.
she came to terms with it.
She
Right.
writes. She's very.
She's an
And
artist,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah.
She uses what she has
But
for God.
she has like braces or something on her hands now, so I don't know if she can use her hands or not. But for a long time she couldn't.
Right.
But you look
Yeah, I
at
remember
people
that was
like
a big thing when I was a kid. She must have wrote
Yeah.
a book or something.
Well, yeah,
she's
she's had a.
because I
she's
remember
had-
having that like book and reading her story, hearing her story.
Yeah, yeah.
Because she was painting with her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that wouldn't be me. I know I'd be bitter and miserable. And I hope I would be more mature and say, oh, I'd be fine. I don't think so. I'd be miserable. Like, you had my brother die, my parents are gone, and now I'm gonna be part. Yeah. Oh, let me go.
Especially if you're like an active person and
Right.
then get stricken.
Right.
You
Yeah.
might as well
She
just
did
shoot me, cause,
swimming, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was.
yeah.
But it's just hard to imagine how anybody can be in that situation
And
It's
live
just
from the very
testimonies.
beginning, live
Yeah.
from it.
Right.
You know, would you break your neck?
Right.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's only a
Very
little
dry,
thin
yeah.
thing here.
Right.
Once it's broke, you're dead. You
Yeah.
know.
It could be. Yeah. Or
And
drown.
Ugh.
She was the water.
that's depressing. Let's get some fun stuff.
An interesting exercise will be to compare Paul's view of peace in Romans 5:1-11 with images of peace in popular literature and entertainment. Sometimes these images show a type of peace in which no serious conflict remains possible.
Ah,
The unique feature of Romans 5:1-3 needs to be taken into account. For Paul, peace involves the continuation of affliction.
oh God. Oh God. Really?
Yeah, I remember they said last week that we met that you can't know peace without knowing war or something, and I thought,
Yeah.
really?
But-
Can you not know peace without knowing war? And I guess, that went back to the thing where if the
Yeah.
tree falls in the forest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how we got off that tangent.
Yeah.
Last time.
Well, it's a comparison thing. If you always had peace and you knew nothing else,
Right, you didn't know conflict.
what would be
How
wrong
would
with
you-
that?
Yeah. Right.
But you wouldn't know what true peace is
But it
without
doesn't,
conflict.
you know, it doesn't mean that you have, it doesn't mean that you have to always be in
Turmoil.
turmoil
Yeah,
and
right.
conflict.
Right.
You know how difficult it is to keep peace or sound mind?
Yeah. That's when I think of the people like you that take care of somebody who's sick, because there's no, you've got to do it day in and day out.
Yeah.
And it's constantly just wears on you, you know,
Right.
because
You
you're
get
taking
weary.
care of somebody and they're not happy with the way things are.
And
you
he's
just,
constantly saying, you deserve better than
I
this.
wish I would die. And,
Oh, I've heard that one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had more people
But
in the
then the
last,
next day he's
2-3
happy
years
go
that
lucky
say
and singing and whatever, you know, so.
that's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's, you get weary and it's very confining.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad at least you have the church, because you can come out. You don't want to
Yeah,
let you
yeah,
out, but
yeah,
you've got the excuse. You just come to
Yeah.
Bible study here.
No, it's not an excuse, but
I mean, you get to go out and
yeah,
talk
I
with
just
people.
don't go for long periods. of
Right,
time.
right.
Like, somebody said the other day, well, since Julie's moved, I said, I've never even seen her new place.
Oh,
I said,
really?
it's an hour ride each way.
Right.
So if I would go, I would be gone 3 or 4 hours.
Right, it'll be all day.
And it's like, that's kind of hard because the back of your mind is, okay.
And then on the way home, all you can think about is probably worry. I gotta rush home, I gotta
I
rush.
don't worry so much. It's the only thing is,
He's
his fear is falling.
Wow.
And he gets lonely because when I come home, I get this, oh, I missed you. It's like,
Really?
Yeah.
I was gone 2 hours. I want to hear I missed you.
It's so familiar.
Your husband does the same thing? Oh, Lord have
Yeah.
mercy.
Yeah.
Can't let him,
But
you gotta
Dan will
get
drive
it
me
out of
nuts.
the head.
I'm gonna work until I die, because Dan will drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be ignorant. I love him. He's the sweetest man, but he talks a lot. God have
And he
mercy.
makes noises like,
Yeah, he does that snorting thing. As soon as he does it, I think you guys, I want to record him and send it to you guys, just so you know what I'm talking about. We did in church that one time. I looked over and you would smile, and I'm like, she heard it. I know she heard that. I'm like, jack shit. Because he does it, and it just, oh, I don't know why. You can tell you've been married too long when you're starting to pick at things like that.
Yeah.
Because I can snore doesn't even bother me anymore. He doesn't sleep. We don't sleep in the same room anymore because we both snore. But when he, like we have the house,
honeymoon's over.
but now I guess I'm just losing my hearing because I don't even hear it anymore. When we listen to
No,
it.
you tune it out.
Yeah, you learn to. But it used to be like every little snort at night, I couldn't sleep the next day.
Well, you get him with CPAP. Snake doesn't
And then you gotta
snore.
listen to that thing.
No, Snake doesn't make any
No, it
noise at
doesn't.
all.
Nowadays they do, but
His does
My
not
father
make any
in law
noise.
still makes
His
noise.
concentrator makes a noise,
Oh, yeah,
but
well,
it's-
that's constant.
but it's 24/7.
And you're used to it.
And
right?
I hardly hear it.
Yeah, because
And
you're so
it's-
used to it.
It's not loud, it's just, but it's in another room, so I don't pay much attention. But as far as the CPAP thing,
No. I don't think
I
I
don't
have
hear
sleep
anything.
apnea, but he's never been tested. You know,
I don't know, but
I've been tested for it and I didn't have it. I just snored and fat, probably. Stuff just hanging down there flapping in the breeze. Because everything's flapping, I guess.
Moving on.
this isn't so much for sleep apnea, it's more for its lungs.
Oh,
It gives
yeah.
its lungs a break.
I
It
didn't
helps
think
you
of
to
that.
breathe.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a full mask,
Yeah, my father was the same.
and it
Like,
gives
that's all the
it
insurance would
helps you to
cover.
breathe, and it has moisture,
Right.
and it humidifies,
Oh, that's nice.
so, and he doesn't make a sound. I don't hear anything, not from that end anyway.
Let me look.
Okay then.
Romans 5:12.
I've got it right here.
You did Romans 5:12?
Therefore, as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all men sinned. How much do you want? Just that
Just
one verse?
verse 12, yeah.
Okay.
Where do you stand on that interpretation of that verse?
Okay, we went through this yesterday about Adam and Eve. Adam sinned, but she sinned first.
Okay.
So,
I think he was standing right there when she did it.
well,
Doesn't say
the
she
thing was,
wasn't.
why didn't he stop her?
Right.
Okay, we went through all this yesterday.
Oh, you did? Okay. Do you favor those who stress individual responsibility for sin, or do you stand with those who stress determinism, that sin is inevitable and is caused by the first sin of humans on earth? How do you think it's possible to hold both theories at the same time as Paul did? So sin came into the world through Adam and Eve, but we are also, so we are sinners, but we also,
Why is it their fault?
because they brought sin into the world. If they didn't do that, we wouldn't have sin in the world, I guess.
Something to blame it on.
Because we
somebody
don't want to
to blame
blame
it on.
ourselves.
That's it,
Take
yeah.
the blame, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that would tries to pass the book, like saying the devil made me do it. Oh, I'm just a sinner, so I'm a drunk, so I should drink.
Yeah.
Make up excuses, I guess.
It's because we
I
want to
don't
do what we want to do.
Yeah,
And Lord knows everything's a sin.
It says, sin came into the world through one man.
right. We blame it on Adam.
But no, that's the thing. If you read in Timothy, which is where we were yesterday,
Yeah,
it was like she sinned first.
right, because she ate it
And then
first.
she
Shared it with
enticed
him.
him and he gave in.
Right.
So he sinned. So according to this,
Blame it on the woman.
he was,
Yeah.
blame it on the woman. This doesn't do that. This blames it on
Well, then
the
God
woman.
should have told Eve instead of telling Adam. Told Adam that he shouldn't eat it. Didn't say to the woman.
He didn't say to the woman not to eat it.
But she knew. She knew. And then the devil just convinced her.
See,
At least
now,
that's what way I look at it.
God creates
Mhm.
the world and the universe.
Right. I agree with
And
that.
he couldn't stop two people from sinning.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either. He knows we're gonna sin, and so he sets it up and lets us do it.
He sets
anyway.
us up for sin.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Yeah.
He knew we were gonna sin,
Yeah.
so why did he make the snake? He could have not even made the snake.
He created a universe, for God's
Right.
sakes. He couldn't control two human beings.
We couldn't control the devil because they were angels, right?
Oh. You're talking about somebody who created the world and the universe.
Right.
You don't. He is the one that sent Satan,
Okay.
right?
You don't think Satan
Satan was a
decided that?
fallen angel.
Right. Yeah, that's what they say. But he could have said something to stop it, but he didn't. Because we all have free will, even Satan, I guess.
Oh.
No, it says.
That's what I would say, but I know you don't believe that. You
What
believe
was that
everything.
again?
I said we all have free will, so Satan
Yeah.
chose to do what he did too.
Yeah.
But then some people said to me in seminaries, well, Satan could be redeemed too. Why, if the whole world can be redeemed at the end, why can't Satan be redeemed in the end? And I thought,
Good
well,
point.
maybe he can. Maybe that's the whole idea at the end. Well,
But if he doesn't confess and ask for
Right.
forgiveness, he's not going to get it.
right.
That's my theory. Everybody can sin.
Right.
Everybody can be forgiven, but you have to ask for
You have
that.
to have a
That's
right
what I
heart.
think.
Right.
That's my theory. It says Adam was formed first, then Eve.
Right.
And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became the transgressor.
Right.
Back here, Paul's saying that man was the sinner.
Right. Well, they just lump us all
Timothy's-
together.
But Paul wrote
That must have been when he was
Paul
a
was
woman.
writing to Timothy and
Yeah.
says, and then he turns around and says the woman was deceived.
Right.
Paul contradicts himself.
Right.
Doesn't make fun.
Yeah. When it suits them.
Sorry, but I sorry.
I think it was God's purpose to make it, to make it that way.
Okay.
I think that God created people, gave them free will, let them do what they chose to do.
Yeah, why would he put the tree there and make it look good? If he didn't want us to eat it, it should look like persimmons or something nasty.
Ew,
You know what I mean? Like you didn't want to
Tree full
eat
of
it.
clams
Or something nasty and it stink to high heaven.
Now, your father used to make clam stew. It was good. Yeah.
My dad would make clam pie.
My mother used to make clam pie.
He would shuck out, go down with the Jenkins or whatever,
Yeah,
and get
Yeah.
little
We'll
ones.
go to Jenkins.
Yeah, he used to, right after he died, he might
My
want
mother would put them in the freezer.
you get like a,
To make them easier to open, they would be about
Yeah.
that far, and then you can
you
do
shuck them out. He had a special knife.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he rarely went there.
But she would make clam pie, and she'd always send a piece to me, but not for me. Because she knew I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't
But
like it?
She called and said, tell Nate I have clam pie if you want some. He liked it.
That's a lot of work too.
I've never made it. Anyway,
Okay, let's
how do we
see.
get off on clams?
I don't know. I must have said something.
Is
You
it-
did.
It's
It was
your
you.
fault. It's
It was
always
you.
your fault.
Yeah.
All my fault.
It's always your fault.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a need for Paul's distinction between the presence of reconciliation and the futurity of salvation and contemporary Christianity? Reflecting on this question may lead to a problem of Christian overconfidence.
How can you be overconfident in Christianity? I don't understand.
I don't
I
know.
understand. Is there a need for Paul between the presence of reconciliation? Distinction between reconciliation and salvation.
Well,
don't
I
know.
guess it's
don't
talked
know.
about that we don't have salvation fully yet because we're not on the other side kind of thing, and that's where we would see the future of salvation. Because it's here, but it's not here yet fully. And
Did
we're
salvation-
reconciled with God now, though.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
but we can't have.
Is there a
salvation.
need
We
for
can't
that?
have salvation on this earth.
Yeah, I think we do.
I thought that was a part of.
But I think that's what
Part
this
of it.
chapter talks about, is that it talks about it in future texts. No, actually, that's the next chapter. When I started doing the questions, I said, when we get through all these questions, I ain't done none of these. I'm like, okay. It talks about Christ, sharing of Christ's resurrection life, the present or future prospect. That's the next chapter, and it's a future tense. So when he's talking about salvation, he's talking about something in the future. But I've always been preaching the now but not yet. Like we have, it's Christ's kingdom is now, but it's not fully realized till he comes back again. But we still have a taste of it now.
Maybe it's the drones getting ready.
Yeah, so we look up in the sky and see Jesus. I don't know. I don't even know what to
We
think
don't
about it.
know.
I
We
really
don't
don't.
How many times does he have to come back in order to straighten us out?
You think he's came back more than once?
He was here,
He was
wasn't
here
he?
once, yeah.
How many times has he gotta do it to get it straight?
Um,
They didn't do it the first time, gotta come back and do it again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's been a long time that people have forgotten, don't believe.
They lost sight.
Yeah.
You know what I did notice too? Years ago, you used to see the main thing on somebody's yard or whatever when it comes to Christmas was
Right,
the manger scene.
right.
You don't see that anymore in any.
I had one of my garage that, or my shed that Bob Hagler made for me, one of those.
Yeah.
And I gave it next door to put out front if they want to. I gave it to them last week, so we'll see if it goes up or not.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want it anymore.
Right, so it
If
doesn't
I-
matter what
this
they do
is-
with it, right?
If it gets put up, I have to do it,
Yeah.
and I have to take it down.
Yeah.
Richard
that's
didn't
big
want
about
it, Buddy didn't want it, Julie has no place for it, so I
Right.
gave it to them. And I thought, well, they can put it in front of their house, they can put it in front of the church, or they can throw it away, they can do what they want.
Right.
But they have it if they need it. So,
Right.
yes, I still, I think people used to steal them.
They weren't cheap. I remember
Well, no, he made mine.
Yeah,
He
we-
gave it to me.
when I worked at the weigh station, we always had one out front, and it was
Right.
from some business in Pittman or something. That was a ridiculous price. I don't know
Oh, but this was just a wooden
Yeah,
cutout.
this one had like lights and stuff on
Oh, no, this is just a wooden cutout painted white, and it was nice, and Bob made it, and gave it to me, and I thought that was nice.
I remember he was in a thing, he was making a lot of stuff for everybody.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
have a skunk that he made for me.
Yeah, he was making the reindeers and all kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
it. You weren't the one that had the skunks under your porch, was it? Who was it that was talking about skunks? It was years ago. It must not have been you.
I don't think they were really skunks, it might have been the weed they were smoking and told them.
No, this was a church
Just a-
person,
Oh, just so they.
like Mary Booker or somebody.
Oh,
Might
no,
have
no,
been her.
no, that wouldn't be it.
No, I wouldn't want to see her eyes. She would have been a mess. She was a mess with.
Yeah, Mary? Mary
I love
was-
her to death.
Mary was quiet.
Well, I would go down there and talk to her.
She was depressing, right?
It was sad because she didn't let go of things like
Anything.
putting her mom in a nursing home. She
Yeah.
felt guilty about that.
Selling the house in Elmer, she.
Oh, yeah.
That,
And she was worried she was going to get buried down in Divine Creek.
oh, she hated dividing.
I said, if they try to bury you and I'm still here, I'm going to tell them. Your body may be here, but your soul is something else. And they didn't bury her down there, thank God. I'm like, she's going to jump up out of that coffin and snatch
She
somebody up.
never got over leaving Elmer.
Well, they did.
Neither
They
one of them
bamboozled
did.
her, right? Because they came down
Neither
while
one
she
of
was
them
in
did.
church, moved her, didn't they?
Who moved her?
Her family, her husband, didn't they? While she was at church?
Oh, I don't know if he did it while she was. in
That's
church.
what the story she told me. She went to church
And came
and
home
came
and the house
their
was
house was
empty.
empty.
Because the house
They
that she
moved
lived
it.
in here in Fairton belonged to my mother.
Oh, okay.
And, but Alice and Mary, neither one of them ever gave up leaving Elmer.
Right.
But Mary was upset because they sold the
Yeah.
house.
Oh, yeah. She told me never should have sold that.
Never should have sold the house.
Why? What are you
She
gonna?
hated Divine Creek.
She didn't like dividing creek.
She lived right
But-
across the
but
street
Harry
from her
grew up-
in-laws.
Yeah, that too.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
And
he-
she didn't get along with them.
No.
Ah.
Well, you had to know him. He was a mess.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
But
God.
Harry grew up in Dividing Creek. He
Right.
was determined he was going to move back to Dividing Creek.
That was a
The
free
house-
house.
The house became available to him, it belonged to
Right.
his brother, I think.
Yeah, or something.
And he wanted to move back. And Kelly and Mary sat, I guess they sat in the house
And
and
cried.
cried.
That's all. That's what I heard. Yeah. So she was quiet until she wasn't. Because I'd go to her house every week, like I usually go to see Weezy or whatever. And she would feed me, and we'd sit there and talk. And she'd talk every time about how bad her husband was, and he drank. She had to hide money from him, and she'd get calls from the neighbors. Your husband's home. He was home looking for the money she'd hide. Stuff like that. I'm like,
And he was not, he had arthritis here.
yeah. She said
He suffered, poor guy.
and she had to take care of him, and that's why she couldn't take care of her mom and her husband, so she had to put her mom in the home, and she felt guilty and all this stuff. Like, you need to let that go, honey.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
it's like,
hard.
it's been 30, 40 years, and you're still talking
She
about it.
never did.
Nope.
No.
I felt bad.
Yeah,
And she kept saying, I can't be mad at God. I said, you can be, you just gotta let it go, though, because you're holding on to it, and you're never good letting it go. So she didn't want to admit she was mad at God for the circumstances, which I don't blame her. I guess it's kind
It's
of
hard
hard.
to.
Yeah. When you got crappy circumstances, you want to blame somebody, you gotta let it out. But, I don't know. All right, there is one more question. There are times when Christians feel that their conversion means the cessation of all difficulties and resolution of all problems. Once saved, always saved. Perhaps Paul's more balanced view is out of date. What do you think? Well, see, that's two different things to me. I don't think that because you're
Just because you get converted, if you've never been in a church person or a Christian,
right,
and you get converted,
right,
that doesn't mean everything's gonna go
right,
away.
right,
It means you should have a different frame of mind,
right.
but everything's not gonna go away.
Especially not overnight. I mean, you're not just gonna get saved and it's all rainbows and puppy dogs. You know? And I remember when I first
And
got,
I'm not even sure if you get saved in terms of what? What are we talking here?
Let's say
Baptism and, or what?
let's see,
Or
salvation, saved from
having
hell,
Seeing the
forgiveness,
light.
forgiveness from sin.
Yeah.
Going to heaven.
you don't ever give, I mean, there's always another sin coming
Yeah,
along.
oh yeah, you
It's
get
not like you're
forgiven,
gonna,
and then next thing you know, you're sinning again.
you're sinning
Right.
again, there's something else.
Right,
So, it's
Yeah.
always gonna be there tugging at me,
So it's gonna be there.
you know?
But just because you become a Christian doesn't mean that
No.
everything's gonna be.
I know, a lot of
great.
people think
and
that.
I think it would be even worse,
It
because
is
the devil's
worse. I
gonna
think
want
so,
to bring
too.
you down. So he's gonna throw everything at
And
you.
you know, some people, when they become Christians, all of a sudden they know everything,
Oh,
and they're
see,
trying
that
to
drives
convert everybody else, and
Yeah.
they're walking around.
See, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
And this is what I,
When you're not humble about it, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
this is one
See,
thing
that's a
that
problem right there.
I used to get from Nate. He'd say, "Oh, so and so
Yeah,
got religion,
right,
and boy, are they obnoxious." You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've seen people.
I've seen that happen many times.
Because people try to preach at people without a relationship.
And they don't know what they're talking about.
They're just spouting off the
Yeah.
Christianese, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not really addressing what
right,
The
what's
real
really the issue.
truth to the matter
Right.
is.
They get that lightning bolt and they think that they're all electrified, and they're not.
Right,
Mm-mm.
I think that's
I
good.
like that analogy.
That's a good.
We had a
I
very
just made
interesting
that one up.
conversation. It was interesting today.
I guess Gwen's done.
I'm done.
We're done with the questions, yeah. Next week is 66. And
We're
all
gonna be here next week. It's Christmas.
No, I guess it's not. It's a
So
couple
day
weeks.
before Christmas.
Couple weeks, yeah, we'll have off.
And then the following week is New Year's
New Year's
Day.
Day, yeah, so we'll have
We'll
to
have off 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's why I didn't wanna cancel today. So we'll be on the 8th.
I'm glad you came, Gwen.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, you should have canceled. You know, I said, I think Gwen's coming. I didn't hear from her, but I didn't know. I didn't tell you.
I didn't even check my phone till I figured, I was working on something when I was at the card dealer.